Hi, I'm Pam, and I'm here to answer your questions about video games and other things. Hey everyone, I'm here to do a new Q&A video. It's been a couple years since I've done one of these. I believe my last one was about 2 years ago when I hit 75,000 subscribers, and as I just this year reached the 100,000 subscribers mark, I thought it was a good time to do another Q&A. Lily is here. Maybe at some point she'll actually get in frame and you'll be able to see her. We can only hope. But I took questions for this video first from the lovely people who support me on Patreon. I will be answering all of the questions asked there, and I also solicited questions in the community tab on my channel, so I will be answering questions from there as well. Now, here's Lily, sort of. Want to say hello to everyone? She doesn't really have much of a brain, so I don't know if she'll say hello. Yeah, you're a good girl. Mwah. So let's get right to the questions. The first one comes from Butch Arrington, who asks, if you had a chance to tell a game developer to replace tank controls with something else, what kind of control scheme would you describe to take its place? Anything else, anything other than tank controls. It really depends on the type of game. Right stick camera control moves are good. The most important thing is being able to move freely with the left stick as opposed to having to point and shoot in order to move. But yeah, just anything but tank controls for any game. There was a second part of this question, and that is, what are some games you are anticipating that never got made or released? And the one that comes to mind there is Beyond Good and Evil 2, which I don't think has been officially canceled, but there has been no news about that game for quite a long time. I really liked the first Beyond Good and Evil. I loved the sort of amalgamation of photography and stealth and action and combat and driving. It was just a really exciting game to play, so I was looking forward to a sequel, but I don't know if that's ever going to release. The next question comes from Battle Pants, who asks, which console do you think is the most overrated? And I don't really think that any console is overrated. There are a bunch that I really have no love for, like the N64 or the Switch or any handheld that exists. But just because other people like them, I don't think makes them overrated. They all have their positives and negatives, and different consoles appeal to different people. So yeah, I can't say that anything is overrated. The next question comes from Eric, who asks, will you still consider getting a cat? And probably not. I know after Max died a few years ago, I thought maybe I'd get another one eventually, but I think I am really a dog person now over a cat person. I think the only way that I would consider a cat is if I was in a place where I had a lot of space and I never needed to go near a litter box other than to clean it. And you know, right now that's not my situation, so I don't think in the foreseeable future I would be considering getting a new cat. Next questions come from Mark, who has a few questions. The first is, do you see yourself doing this in 5 to 10 years? And what gives you the drive to continue producing content on top of a full-time job? I do see myself doing this in 5 to 10 years. I'm pretty sure I will be playing video games for the rest of my life, so I can't see any point in which I no longer want to talk about them or recommend them to people or help other people discover cool new games. So I don't think the desire to do that is going to go away at all. And in terms of doing this on top of a full-time job, I've gotten to a point where it's not that much of an imposition. Like in terms of content, I sort of make it when I have the need to or when I feel the time for it. There's very rarely any points where I'm like, oh, I need to do a video now, but I'm so busy and I'm gonna have to put other things off. So it's become a pretty easy thing to work into my schedule of other things. So I never really feel like it's that much of a imposition creating content on YouTube. It is just a hobby and something I do when I feel like it. And then the last question is, if you had the chance to be involved in creating or developing a game, what franchise would you choose? And so first of all, I really have no interest in being involved in game development. I just like to play games. I want other people to be creative for me. However, if I had to be involved in one franchise as a sort of like consulting, run ideas by kind of person, then it would be Vampire the Masquerade. The next question is from New Wave Junkie, who asks, what have been some of the best, or alternatively the worst, moments of the past 10 years of Cannot Be Tamed? And there's definitely two things that come to mind. The first, in terms of channel growth specifically, is being on AVGN. I had no idea how like that tiny 10-second clip would give my channel such an amazing increase in subscribers. I gained like thousands of new subscribers after I had that little cameo in the Aladdin video on AVGN. So that was a pretty cool opportunity and a surprising one in terms of how well it went. And then the second thing was being invited out to Montpellier to see Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown before it had been announced, which was just a very cool opportunity. I mean, I'm frequently given like game keys or, looks at things, but someone coming and being like, hey, we'll fly you to France to play this game no one knows about was pretty freaking cool. And it really helped that it ended up being an excellent game as well. Wouldn't it have been bad if it would flown all the way out there and been like, ooh, I don't like this. That would have been awkward. But yeah, I think that was definitely one of the coolest things that happened to me just in terms of having this channel over the last 10 years. Eric M asks, it's been a long time since we've seen you as Velvet Velour. Do you ever plan on bringing that character back? No. I've really only been Velvet Velour on the channel one time when I reviewed the game that Velvet Velour is in. So unless she makes a surprise appearance in Bloodlines 2, then I don't really see any reason to bring her back again. The next question is from Chris, who asks, which boxed games in your collection are the most meaningful to you? And there's a couple. The first one is the LucasArts Archive. This was a game, it's multiple games, as you can see. It's a bunch of LucasArts games. Got Monkey Island 1 and 2, Afterlife, Full Throttle, The Dig, and I think a bunch of demos, and then Dark Forces, which I don't think I ever played. But I just got so much use out of this little collection here. This is what really spawned my love of adventure games. And in terms of tracking down boxes of games that I used to have, this was one of the most difficult. It took me a long time to track this down. I mean, I probably could have gone on eBay or something, but I ended up finding it at an actual store, not a store, a convention. So I was really happy about that. So this is one that I'm very happy to have, even though it doesn't have like a ton of neat stuff in it because it is a compilation, but it just, all of these games, or most of these games, are really important to me. And then the other one is Planescape Torment, which is just one of my favorite games of all time, and I was happy to have this. Again, not my original box because I always just threw boxes directly in the garbage, but one of my favorite games. I feel like this is one of the best written games, best stories, best characters, so also happy to have this one. The next question is from Winterburden, who asks, what made you decide to start talking about video games? And I feel like I've talked about my sort of channel origin story in a few Q&A videos before, but I started when I was a World of Warcraft player. I made a blog about World of Warcraft because I couldn't just play it casually. I had to raid and theorycraft and tell other people how they should play the game. So I ended up getting to be like a fairly popular blog, mostly about druids, occasionally about hunters. And then as I lost interest in World of Warcraft, I didn't want to stop blogging, so I started just talking about any games I felt interested in, and then eventually moved to making videos, first about sort of old games that I had played before, and then eventually evolving into, again, talking about whatever games I'm interested in at the time. The next question is from SG Matthews, who asks, what game or games made you fall in love with Metroidvanias? I think I remember Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night being relatively recent for you. So I did play Symphony of the Night in the late 90s. I borrowed it from a friend at some point, and I liked it, but I also got very lost, and I ended up giving it back to her without getting that far into it. But yeah, it still wasn't like, oh yeah, I need to play more games like this. And then I don't know, I'm very bad with dates and remembering which things happened when, but I would say that Ori and the Blind Forest, I think that was 2015. That was one of the first sort of major Metroidvanias that I really loved, and it really got me into it. And then I started to want to play more games like that. Some other earlier ones that I started playing were Axiom Verge, even though I'm a little bit lukewarm on that one. SteamWorld Dig is another one I played fairly early on. The Mummy Demastered is one that I actually really like, that is one that I remember specifically searching for more Metroidvania games as a subgenre, so I really liked that. And then of course Hollow Knight is probably where I fell in love with Metroidvanias, even though I didn't like it the first time around. I had to play it a bit, put it down for months, and then try again before it really got its hooks into me. Lunar Eagle asks, outside of gaming and movies, what other hobbies do you enjoy doing? Well, I love rock climbing. I've been rock climbing for about 2.5 years. I try to do it about twice a week. I like top rope and lead climbing most, but I also do bouldering because I don't always have someone to climb with. So that's something I've really gotten into. Mostly indoor, actually almost entirely indoor. I went outdoor once in the last couple years and it was fun, but very, very time consuming compared to like what you can do just in a gym that's 15 minutes away from my house. So that's something I really like. I'm also really into cooking and food. I like cooking new things. I like trying new restaurants and going out for fancy chef's tasting menus and things. I've been doing a lot of gardening as much as I can, just windowsill gardening and on my balcony during the summer. I actually looked back at my old Q&A where I talked about getting into plants, and there was a shot of them and they were all little baby plants, and I still have a lot of them. I haven't killed them and they're so much bigger now, which is pretty cool. Candymatic asks, what is your personal favorite video from your channel so far? My favorite video is the video I made on the dig. I think it's my best video. It's one of the ones that I put the most work into by far in terms of researching the game's development, gathering not just game footage, which is what I usually do for most of my game videos, but also B-roll and extra footage, looking at different music other than just music from the game. It took a lot of editing work, and overall, I was really happy with how that one turned out, and I'm happy that it's been pretty well received as well. So yeah, the dig. The next question comes from Mega Black Sox, who asks, are there any Metroidvania games you're looking forward to this year? Yes, I'm looking forward to Silk Song, hopefully coming out this year. Grime 2, I really enjoyed Grime 1. I have a full review of it if you are interested in checking that out. And also Eterna Lucis, which is which is the follow-up to Eterna Noctis, which is an incredibly difficult Metroidvania that I also have a full review on. Those are my most anticipated ones right now, though I do find that a lot of my favorite ones of the year kind of end up coming out of nowhere for me. Brown Meyer asks, what RPGs are you playing and what's in your backlog? So I'm not doing a whole lot in terms of RPGs right now. I've been sort of dabbling in Avowed, and it's honestly better than I was expecting it to be, because I don't generally love those kind of Skyrim-y Western RPGs, but I have been really liking The World, which is the world from Pillars of Eternity, which I really liked. The writing particularly I'm enjoying, and the world is very, very fun to explore, but it like hasn't completely gotten its hooks in so that I'm, playing it over the course of a weekend, but like a few hours here and there, I've been enjoying myself. In terms of my backlog, things I really want to play, I really want to play Final Fantasy Tactics at some point. It's Michelle's favorite game, so I should really play that sometime. And then the other one I want to play is Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. I'm always on the lookout for a new isometric CRPG, and that one looks pretty good. Juan Rodriguez asks, how much do you think your personal taste influences your reviews? Do you think a good reviewer should strive for some sort of objectivity, or that it's fine to trust your preferences? I think my personal taste influences my reviews completely. I don't think there is such a thing as objectivity when it comes to art or video games. There's very few things that you can say that are objective, like the game works, you press A to jump, those are objective things. The quality of something, how good the movement feels, if you like the art style, I think that's all completely subjective and up to taste. So when I talk about games, I talk about what I think about them, what I like and don't like, things that I would improve to make them more likable to me. If you're someone who finds you have the same sort of tastes as me, then the videos are probably pretty useful to you, whereas if you don't, then my videos might not be useful, unless it's to find things that are the complete opposite of my taste, if that's what you're looking for. But no, I don't strive for any kind of objectivity. Joe Badger asks, do you think Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 can be a significant game for you in the same way the first one's, assuming it finally releases this year? Honestly, I doubt it. My hype for that game has just sort of bottomed out. There's not a whole lot that I'm looking forward to. I'm still willing to be surprised. I hope it does surprise me, and I hope it does come out and turn into a game that I love playing. But yeah, nothing right now is giving me those like warm, fuzzy feelings that I had about the first game. But again, until I play it, I can't really say for sure. Rubs asks, how many hours do you play per day? How do you balance your life and other things? It really depends on the day. Some days I play 0 video games. Some days I'll play like an hour or 2. There are days where, it's a weekend, I'm not feeling great, and I will sit in bed and play a video game for 8 hours if I feel like it. So I would say on average, 1 to 2 maybe. But in terms of balancing, I don't have any problem balancing. I think having a job where I work from home is very helpful. Not having children, very helpful. But yeah, I don't have any trouble balancing video games and reading books and watching movies and spending time with my partner and my family and my friends and exercising and doing all the other stuff I'm into. So I always feel like I have plenty of time to play video games. Bobo Breeze asked, what was the first mature video game you played? Mine was Resident Evil, and it still is one of my favorite game series. And for me, it was Leisure Suit Larry. Leisure Suit Larry 2 in particular, I played when I was only 7 or 8 years old, which is definitely too young for that game, though I then went on to play the entire series by the time I was like 12 or 13. Next question is from Frozen Ninja. It says, congrats. 10 years is quite a span. Over that time, what are some changes in the gaming industry you've noticed that you like and some that you don't like? Things I don't like are companies springing up everywhere, then being bought by larger corporations and being shut down. That sucks. The focus on remasters, not a big fan of that. The unending amounts of DLC, not a huge fan. I also really don't like the director's cut. I hate when a game comes out and I'm excited for it and I play it right away, and then a year later they're like, oh no, this is the real version. That pisses me off. But most of the stuff I don't like in games right now is just how they're all being run by big companies who don't care about people or the art, general capitalism things. In terms of what things I like, I love that there's just way more indies and way more games to play. I mean, it does feel fairly saturated right now, but there's always something to play, something new coming out, something old to discover. I love how many different sort of genre mashups we're getting. Games that are retro styled, games that feel very new, games that are really doing new things. So I just think the breadth of games available is one of the best things. Sort of related to this question by the Baird is, what is the best period in gaming for you? And if we're talking about just quality and enjoyment of games, it's right now. The best time in gaming is always right now, because we have what we are coming out new, and we have all of the games that have come out in the last 50 years as well. So just the more the merrier. Yes, there are bad games coming out, but there's just more and more and more good games to play at the same time. Roros asks, I wonder if along these years you ever considered quitting the channel, and if so, how you overcame it. There's been a couple times where I felt burnt out on the channel and where I really haven't been at all inspired to make videos, but I don't think there's ever been a time where I was like, nope, not worth it, I don't want to do this anymore. I think overcoming the burnout feeling is just realizing that this isn't a job, it is just a hobby, and I don't really need to be beholden to anyone in terms of schedules. There was a time I was trying to put out a video a week every month, and that got to be a lot. So once I took a step back and said, okay, I can just make videos when I feel like it, which still is generally 2 to 3 times a month, things got much less stressful and much more enjoyable. Brian asks, are there any retro games you've discovered recently? The first one is Phantasmagoria: Puzzle of the Flesh. I played that over on stream maybe last summer. After not really liking the first Phantasmagoria at all, I wasn't feeling very compelled to play the follow-up, but I heard a lot of good things, and I ended up really liking Puzzle of the Flesh. It was a lot funnier, a lot more, I don't know, it was like serious and funny at the same time. It was like, had better horror in it, had better characters, but then there were just like these little touches like the emails that were hilarious. And I ended up actually going on conversations with Curtis, with Paul, who plays Curtis in the game. You should check out that interview if you're interested in that. But I really liked Phantasmagoria too. And then, I don't know what your definition of retro is, but I've also recently been playing through the Gears of War series, playing through those co-op with my partner, and really, really liking them. I always sort of thought of them as kind of like just meathead army boy games, and they are, but they're also really, really fun, especially to play co-op. Justin Stewart asks, if you were going to show a kid your favorite video games in chronological order, what would you start with? And also, Dragon's Lair, good or bad? Dragon's Lair, bad. Bad, bad, bad. If I was going in chronological order, I'm not sure about release date months, but I would start with 1988. So one of either Super Mario Bros. 3, The Guardian Legend, or Monopoly on NES. Stephen Wilds wants to know, what is the scariest game you've ever played, and what is your favorite Goosebumps story? So scariest? I have a couple answers. So Outlast, I can say that's the scariest, because that's one I never finished. I actually ended up putting it down. Even trying to play it through with someone sitting beside me, it was still too scary, and I ended up quitting Outlast like only an hour or two in. In terms of games I've actually finished, Fatal Frame 2 was the scariest game I played at the time. Playing it now, it's less scary, but that first time playing through it on the PS2 when it was new was very scary. Just like the music, the sound effects, the creepy film grain. I found that game pretty terrifying overall. And then in terms of Goosebumps, I did read a number of Goosebumps books as a child. I don't remember them all that much, so most of my Goosebumps knowledge right now is coming from the We Got Goosebumps podcast. So I'd say based on that, I'd go with One Day at Horrorland, just because Dylan and Travis talk so positively about that one, and just hearing the recap of the story was very cool. Just the sort of like amusement park / game showy concept. I really like that, so I'd go with that one. Mac Tonight asks, performance or quality mode? I always go quality mode. I very rarely notice a difference in frame rates, so I'll take a prettier picture. The Gags asks, you can only ever play one Metroidvania again, which will you choose? It's Hollow Knight. I feel like I can get hours and hours and hours of gameplay out of that. Don Johnson wants to know, what's your favorite modern point-and-click game? That is Avowed. It's not called Avowed. It's called Unavowed. By Wadget Eye Games. I really like how it combines the point-and-click with role-playing. I thought just an absolutely fantastic game in terms of being able to sort of drive the story in certain ways, have different companions and have relationships with them while doing your typical point and click adventure, dialogue trees, and inventory combining puzzles. I do have a full playthrough of that on the channel if anyone wants to see Unavowed. Doug asks, have you replayed any games from your childhood? Which ones aged well for you and which ones aged poorly? So my channel here started out reviewing games that I played during my childhood, so I frequently replay them. I think that the games that age the best are the more simple things. So LucasArts point and clicks in particularly age really well. The mechanics are simple, easy to deal with. Some of the puzzles can be obtuse, but they've aged well, other than the mazes in them. Also, things like platformers I find age really well, so Super Mario Brothers or Felix, things like that. Things that I found don't age as well. Some of the sort of PS1 N64 era games, and particularly I'm thinking of the Star Wars pod racing game, which I remember really liking, and I replayed it and I was like, oh, this is dull, like there's not very much to do. Similarly, Spyro the Dragon is one that I really liked as a kid/young teen, and then when they did the remaster, I also found Spyro pretty dull. Anonymous asks, as someone who plays a lot of games with endings as opposed to forever games, what games have your most hours played and what have you replayed the most? So the most hours I have in a game is definitely World of Warcraft. I have literal years in actual playtime of that game. That is a forever game though, so I guess I'll have to go to the next ones. The next one, both in terms of playtime and in terms of replaying, XCOM 2, I tend to go back to that and play it about once a year. I checked my time played and I have 132 hours on Steam and 230 hours on Xbox. Hollow Knight is another one that I replay frequently, trying for the different achievements. I just went back and did the 100% in under 20 hours achievement before I was doing the speedrun achievements. I have 216 hours in Hollow Knight. And then Kingdom 2 Crowns is one I go back to a lot, and I have 110 hours of that. In terms of replaying, I also like to replay shorter games like The Secret of Monkey Island or Under a Killing Moon or Gabriel Knight, sort of my favorite adventure games. John Pettigrew asks, what made you decide to do a podcast about gaming? Podcasting was just another platform to talk about games on, and it gave me a reason to talk to my bestie Michelle, who lives in another country. So it's nice to have a reason to just talk for a couple hours and drink wine and talk about what we've been watching and what we've been playing. Maddie Pup asks, what kind of controllers do you use? I am almost always using an Xbox Series controller. When I play Xbox, when I play on PC, when I play on the Steam Deck, I'm always using these. They're my favorite controllers. I love the D-pads on them, and all the buttons feel good. And it has the right stick layout. Jesus. What are you doing, you creep? What are you doing, creep?
I'm a creep.
Yeah.
How am I a creep?
You have a question for me?
When are you gonna be done with this video?
I think I only have 2 questions left.
Huh?
Yeah.
When did you get into JRPGs? Which one is your absolute favorite?
Who asked that?
Chapsticks.
Well, chapsticks. My JRPG interest is rather limited. I have like a very narrow set of JRPGs that I like. I got into them with Final Fantasy VII. That was my first one. And my absolute favorite is Shadow Hearts Covenant on the PS2. Although I do also like some newer JRPGs like a Dragon, Yakuza Like a Dragon, and Lost Odyssey, which I guess isn't new at all at this point. But yeah, my general JRPG interest is like PS1, PS2. Anything before that, boring.
And I like Zelda: A Link to the Past.
Shut up, get out of here. Alright, the last question is from Frantic Josh, who says, if you could go back 10 years and tell yourself one thing, what would it be? I'm assume this is about the channel, although I guess it doesn't have to be, but it will go with the channel. And I'd say don't waste money on retro video games or let other people waste your money on retro video games. You don't need an $800 piece of plastic to hold up at the beginning of your video or a big shelf of games to sit in front of in order to talk about games and what you love about them. That is unimportant. So that is it for this Q&A. Thank you so much to everyone who asked me questions. Thanks to everyone who is subscribed to me here and helped me get to over 100,000. I hope you'll stick around for more. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Look at this bear. Look at this bear. If you want to see more, check out one of my other videos here. I have a Patreon if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.